Hey guys, it's Rose Moulet, and today I wanted to talk about a YouTuber by the name of Graysons Projects. Now, if you don't know who she is, she has blown up a lot over these past few months. 4 months ago, she had 6,000 subscribers, and right now she has 179,000. And she deserves all the success. Her commentary videos are very well done, and she provides a unique and interesting perspective on the topics that she covers. But that's not why I'm talking about her today. Because a few hours ago, she uploaded a video talking about how she was detransitioning.
I am detransitioning.
And that video already has 100,000 views in 5 hours, which is insane. And as a trans woman myself, I have a lot of feelings about it. So I guess I just wanted to share my perspective about being trans, how I feel about detransitioners in general, and all of that. So to start off this video, I just want to make one thing clear. Inevitably, there are going to be some people who see this video and use it against trans people in some way to say, oh, well, she transitioned, therefore all trans people are invalid, which obviously isn't true. Now, that's awful, and obviously that's not her fault. She should 100% be allowed to share her story, and it disgusts me to think that there are people who would twist it and use it to say that trans people are somehow invalid, when the matter of the fact is that the statistics prove that it's a very, very small minority of trans people that actually wind up detransitioning. And it sucks to see people use those stories to try to invalidate the experience of trans people who are very comfortable with their gender identity. But the main point I wanted to talk about in this video is specifically what she said about her experience with dysphoria. And it's something I wanted to highlight because it's something that I've personally felt for a long time and something that I feel like needs to be expressed more, because I feel like we're having a lot of trans people who are transitioning who don't necessarily feel dysphoria in the same way that a lot of other trans people do. You know, I've seen so commonly people who claim to be trans and yet are totally fine with certain body parts of themselves of the gender that they don't identify as. And to me particularly, I feel like if you're already comfortable in the body that you were assigned in at birth, you probably shouldn't transition, because transitioning involves changing your hormones, it involves surgeries, etc. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And before you start taking hormones, I really do feel like the only reason you should be taking those is if you are so dysphoric with your body that you need your body to match the body of the gender that you identify as, which was the case for me. Because the thing that happens is if you don't have dysphoria and you take estrogen or testosterone, what'll happen is, let's say you were perfectly comfortable in your body beforehand. After taking these hormones for a while, you will start to feel dysphoria. Let's say you were assigned female at birth and you take testosterone. You're going to start feeling dysphoric in the same way that a trans woman feels dysphoric about herself. And I guess this is where I sympathize for Graysons Projects, because you listen to her voice and you assume that she's a trans woman, which is awful to say. And I feel really awful for her because I know what it's like to be treated as a trans woman. I know how awful that is. I know how terrible it is to be invalidated. So to hear that somebody has to deal with that for potentially the rest of their life, it's just really sad to see. And the thing is, I support Grayson 100%, right? She's not one of those people who, because they personally detransition, they think that all trans people are invalid and share their story to a bunch of people who in turn use it to try to stop trans people from getting the services that they need. I 100% believe that hormones like estrogen, testosterone should be freely available, but I also believe that there should be a conversation had before you start taking them to understand the reasons why you're taking them and just to make sure that it's the right decision for you. I fully believe that if a person wants to take it, regardless of their reasoning, they should 100% be allowed to. Obviously, as a trans woman, I took hormones at 14 when they wanted me to take them at 16, and it turned out to be a great decision for me. And for most trans people, that is the case. But it's also a very major decision, and I feel like you really need to do some self-reflection before you make those choices for yourself, because, you know, it is a lifelong decision. It's a big deal. I mean, for me personally, I've always just known that I was a girl. It's never been a question for me. I have a lot of dysphoria And I just know that there is no way that I would be able to be happy in my body without hormones and without surgery. And I feel like the only reason you should be taking hormones is if it makes you feel more comfortable with your body. And another thing I want to talk about is there's this particular stigma for trans men specifically about how a lot of them only transition, you know, because of social environments, because they're pressured to. And I feel like a lot of people would look at this video as like an example of proof in that instance that, you know, this person transitioned to male, you know, because of feminism, because of transgender ideology being spread, and I guess stuff like that. And the thing I want to say is like, my personal opinions about the subject are, I just feel like feminism currently has a bit of a problem, because so much of it right now is just people saying like how much it sucks to be a woman, or this is what the reasons why being a woman is so terrible. And I do worry about what that does to a lot of young girls. I see a lot of young women being horribly afraid of men, not feeling comfortable walking in public. And it's like, while I understand that there are some real dangers out there, I don't think that's a healthy way to live life, to be constantly fearful, to be constantly told that you're lesser because of your gender. And I do question like what that does to a lot of young girls particularly. But at the same time, you have to be able to have that conversation without falsely accusing these trans men of only transitioning because of social pressure, and because it's simply not true in the majority of cases. And while I would argue that there are definitely cases where that is true, to paint all trans men under that light is really just hateful and an extreme misrepresentation of what it is like to be trans. And I've always felt like the way to solve that problem is, instead of telling women how much, you know, being a woman sucks, is to lift them up. And obviously with trans men, the thing is that they'll just never feel comfortable in their bodies until they transition. So as where with cis women, you know, they're happy in their bodies, they just don't like the way that society treats them because of their bodies. But for trans men, they simply just don't like their bodies at all. And I feel like this distinction is important and it needs to be noted more. It just bothers me when people confuse the two. And it's just even more unfortunate when the occasional person is comfortable with their body, but transitions because they somehow believe that, you know, they'll be treated better as a man. So they transition despite knowing that they feel perfectly comfortable in the body that they were assigned in at birth. I think that that's a problem. And I feel like that's why these conversations need to happen before people take these hormones. It just bothers me because, you know, as a trans woman specifically, I hate TERFs with like every fiber of my body, right? I jokingly call myself the ultimate anti-TERF because I'm a trans woman who's not a feminist. And obviously I believe in equality, but I've never really felt accepted as a trans woman in feminist spaces. And I'm not very happy with the way that feminism is right now. So I can't comfortably call myself a feminist when so many feminists simply hate the fact that I exist, when so many feminists don't view me as a woman and try to claim that my life experience as a woman isn't valid. I simply just can't call myself a feminist if that is something that feminists believe. Another thing I wanted to talk about regarding this video is its similarities and differences to another trans person by the name of Trevi Moran. And if you don't know the story, Trevi Moran was a popular YouTuber, and it was known that she had gender identity issues for a while. But for years, she denied being trans before finally coming out as a trans woman, and seems to be a lot happier having transitioned. And I guess what I'm trying to get is, I just remember when Trevi Moran made her first video about her gender, I remember her saying that she felt like pressured into being trans and that she didn't feel necessarily that way.
In 2017, when I thought that I wasn't transgender because I thought that people were pushing me to be transgender, no, I just had a lot of demons back then. It wasn't the time for me to come out back then.
And I just remember seeing the comment section of that video filled with TERFs, and I might show a few comments here. Just people being needlessly hateful of the trans community, and obviously using this video to try to invalidate trans women, which is just terrible. But even when that video came out, like, I always kind of felt like Trevi was a trans woman. And I can't really put my finger to why. All I can say is, you know, as a trans woman, I feel like I can kind of just tell sometimes. And I just had the feeling that like she was trans, but obviously I would never say that. I was eventually proven right years later when she made that video coming out as transgender. And I remember commenting saying on how the TERFs who used her as an example of, you know, social pressures making people feel like they're trans. I made a comment about, you know, notice how those TERFs are silent now, because she did claim that she actually was transgender and was going to be transitioning. And that is the case with a lot of people who are trans and claim not to be or claim to detransition. Their experiences with gender might be complicated or may take the longer for them to really understand themselves or how they truly identify. You know, based on Graysons Projects, her video, based on her experiences and how she didn't really feel dysphoric, she really seems like she sat with herself and really thought about her identity for a long time and realized that, you know, being trans just wasn't something that she felt. And I think that that's completely understandable. The only thing that I worry about with this video is trans people watching this video and then suddenly thinking that they're less valid. Because it's like, when I originally transitioned, I mean, we're talking about 2014. Anyone who transitioned around that time knows that it was a very different environment than it is now. Like, no one knew what being trans was. It simply just wasn't talked about. You know, but at that time, and I guess now to a lesser extent, there were just like a ton of people saying that, oh, it's just a phase, you'll grow out of it. You know, you shouldn't transition because, you know, when you're older, you'll regret it. I mean, that was just the thing. People said that all the time. And of course they were wrong, but I worry that, you know, there are trans people who are gonna watch this video and that is just going to reinforce that transphobic narrative that, yeah, it could be a phase or you could grow out of it. I think people use that a lot as like a fear tactic when it's like 99% of like trans people don't regret it, don't detransition, and you can look at the stats. I mean, overwhelmingly, the people who do transition, their lives are much better for it. And it's like, I do believe that people who detransition should be allowed to share their experiences, but it's also complicated because, you know, you can't really deny that having these experiences online, you're gonna have trans people who watch it and maybe doubt themselves a little bit and maybe think that, oh, you know, being scared that what if I change my mind, you know, years down the line, when statistically speaking, that just isn't going to happen for them. I guess at the end of the day, I don't really have any answers. I don't know what the right thing to do is. I just wanted to, I guess, share my experience as a trans woman, how I felt about this video, because obviously it is something very personal for her. And, you know, I'm glad to see her speak out about how she really feels. And I look forward to seeing more videos from her from the future because she is a really talented YouTuber. I've been making a lot of trans related videos recently. I mean, before it was just something that like I didn't want to talk about, not because I was like ashamed of it or anything, more so because I just wanted to be seen as like a normal cis girl. And I felt like if I constantly kept talking about like trans issues, people wouldn't see me that way, which I guess was a concern of mine because I really just want people to see me as like a cis girl, but also being trans is just such a huge part in life. And I feel like I want to share my experiences. For the remainder of Pride Month, I do want to make a lot of videos like these, you know, just to talk about it. And then obviously I'll go back to the commentary videos that I usually make. I just have a lot of feelings when it comes to this stuff. And I feel like, I guess I have unique perspectives and I feel like I can add to the conversation. So if you guys like this video, please subscribe to my channel and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Chris Hansen here. I have a message for you, Rose Mullet. Thank you for the wonderful entertainment you have provided us with. I'm gonna need you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rose Mullet.
Warning, very sad. Why don't I have 1 million subs yet? This isn't fair, give me subs. If you wanted sandwiches, you could have just asked. Or you could subscribe to Rose Mullet's channel. I think I'll take the sandwiches.